I moved to Indonesia over 40 years ago, and wow, has it changed. From helmets to highways, smartphones to safety rules, I've witnessed the country grow and transform in ways I never could have imagined back in the 1980s. Yes, I've had a front row seat to the evolution that Indonesia has gone through. And let me tell you, it's been remarkable. Hi, I'm Kate, and I want to share some of the interesting changes I've seen over the last 4 decades here in Indonesia. Yeah, I recently made a video about some of the changes I've seen here, and it got a lot of attention from viewers. But I realized that I'd only touched the surface. So I want to share some of the other changes I've witnessed. Let's start with something simple but significant. Helmets. Back when I first arrived in Indonesia, very few motorcyclists wore helmets. It just wasn't common practice. Motorbikes zipped by with 3 or even 4 passengers, kids, groceries, and you name it. And no one thought twice about safety gear. But now, helmets are legally required, and in urban areas like Yogyakarta, where I live, you'll see almost everyone wearing one. It's a welcome change and speaks volumes about the growing awareness around safety. Of course, the moment you leave the city and head into the villages, even up where I live, about 18 kilometers outside of the city, helmet use drops noticeably. But little by little, that will probably increase here and in villages as well. Seat belts have followed a similar trajectory. In the early days, no one wore seat belts. Cars barely had them, and if they did, they were more of a decoration than a safety feature. But once the police started giving tickets to people not using their seatbelt, people decided it was better to use it than to have to pay a ticket. These days, especially in cities, seatbelt use is enforced and expected. This aligns Indonesia closely with international safety norms, even though enforcement for wearing a seatbelt in the back seat hasn't started yet. Yeah, like I said, little by little. Another massive shift that's impossible to ignore is the improvement in the roads. I remember some long, grueling drives, especially the trip from Yogyakarta to Jakarta. I made that drive a few times, and it usually took around 11 or 12 hours, depending on traffic and road conditions. Friends have taken the same trip recently, and it only took about 8 hours, thanks to newly repaired roads, toll roads, and better highways. The ride is smoother, safer, and significantly faster. Too bad my trips were before all the improvements took place. Speaking of transformation, the internet has changed the face of Indonesia. I arrived here before the internet. No Wi-Fi, no Google, not even email. Can you imagine living abroad without instant communication? Yeah. In 1989, I got the news of a family member's passing through a telegram. That was our version of a text message back then, only a lot slower and far more dramatic. And when we finally got a fax machine at the school where I was teaching English, well, it felt like magic. We'd send a list of questions to our project's Canadian office and get answers by the next morning. It was revolutionary. Of course, now that kind of delay feels laughable. But back then, it was high-tech wonder. Now, fast forward to today. Indonesia is practically swimming in internet access. It's fast, reliable, and available just about everywhere. Even tiny cafes tucked into side streets here in Yogyakarta offer free Wi-Fi. For tourists, digital nomads, and expats, that changes everything. You can work, video chat with family, upload travel photos in real time. Honestly, if someone had told me back in the 1980s that all of this would be possible while I was still alive, I would have laughed. It just seemed too far-fetched. And yet, here we are. Of course, smartphones are a huge part of this digital revolution. There was a time when getting a landline phone installed in your home in Jakarta took months, if at all. It involved paperwork, waiting lists, and maybe a little bit of luck or local connections. Today, everyone from students to grandmothers has a smartphone in their pocket. No need for landlines at all. Even in small villages, you'll see people walking around with the handphones stuck to their ears. Yeah, they're video calling relatives, shopping online, or scrolling through social media. WhatsApp has become the default communication tool for practically everything, from chatting with friends to confirming appointments and even ordering food. When I want to make an appointment to get my hair cut, I have to go through WhatsApp and make the appointment. Same thing for my dental clinic. I have to go through WhatsApp and make the appointment. Can you imagine going back to life without the internet? How in the world did we ever manage without instant messaging and shared location pins? Yeah, and let's not forget about tourism. Indonesia has always had its gems, Bali, of course, being the crown jewel. But over the years, Indonesia's tourist map has expanded dramatically. Places that used to be quiet, local-only destinations have now become visiting spots for international and domestic tourists alike. The government has clearly invested in and promoted tourism. New airports, better roads, more hotels, more homestays, improved signage, and a bigger push to promote the country globally. As I mentioned in a previous video, Indonesia is working hard to increase tourism, and the results are noticeable. What once felt like hidden paradise is now bustling with visitors. That's not always a bad thing. Yeah, you might think immediately, oh, we don't want any more people here. But it's not always a bad thing. Tourism can bring opportunity and economic growth. It makes me wonder how we'll balance preservation with progress. Yeah, but in any case, it gives jobs to a lot of people. If you're thinking about moving to Indonesia, or even just planning a visit, there's something important to keep in mind. Indonesia is changing. It's not the same country I stepped into over 40 years ago. And honestly, that's a good thing. The warmth, the kindness, the soul of this place, still here. But now people are safer, more connected, and more mobile. The country has grown and adapted, keeping pace with the modern world while holding tightly to the charm that makes it so special. Isn't that the kind of balance we're all hoping to find? So let me ask you, what kinds of changes would you find hardest to adjust to or easiest to appreciate? If you visited or lived in Indonesia before, what differences did you notice over the years? And if you've never been, what are you most curious about? One of the most valuable lessons I've learned from watching these changes unfold is that progress doesn't mean abandoning your roots. Indonesia has modernized in so many ways, but it hasn't lost its warmth, its sense of community, or its vibrant daily life. That's what makes it such a fascinating place to live. You can have modern convenience without losing the soul of a place. As for me, I'll keep observing. There are always new changes around the corner, some small and subtle, others big and bold. And if you're open to it, life here will surprise you in the best possible ways. I hope you've enjoyed hearing some of my reflections about my life here in Indonesia. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. See you next time.